Where do we find dense regular connective tissue? Tendons and ligaments. Very good. And the dense irregular? The periosteum. Okay, very good. We're going to talk about periosteum more when we get to bone remodeling, because it's essential in which way the bone grows. Okay, but which is ligament or tendon, bone to bone? Ligaments. Bone to bone is ligaments. And then bone to muscle? To, how does she do that one?
You said to my muscle.
To my bone.
Or to my bone.
To my bone. Tendon is muscle to bone. To my bone. TBM, if that works for you. I think of it as ligament, LI, or like, LI. Muscle to muscle, bone to bone, ligaments. First two letters of the word like, there's alike. That's how I think of it. If that helps, great. If not, figure out your own way. But you got to know ligaments join bone to bone and tendons muscle to bone. Okay. We're going to talk about next semester. Got it. Take that back. Cut that. Erase it. Shh. Take that out of your mind. The striations of tendons and ligaments are from what? What in them?
The fibers.
The fibers lining up all in one direction. Because they're lined up in all one direction, it looks like they're striated or lined. That's what gives the muscles and tendons that lined look in them. Because all the fibers are going in the same direction. Okay. Your long bones. We're going to talk about 5 different types of bones. But right now, the features of the long bone. What are examples of long bones?
Femurs, phalanges.
Where are your phalanges? Fingers and the toes. Are those very long? Is that bone very long?
No, but it is longer than it is wide.
Very good. It is longer than it is wide. Okay, so that's what makes it a long bone. So all these long bones have 3 parts. They have an epiphysis, a diaphysis, and a metaphysis. Okay, if you can't remember which way they go, the meta means middle, so it's always going to be between the epiphysis and the diaphysis. And how many epiphyses do you have? 2. A proximal and a... How many metaphyses do you have? You have a proximal and a distal. How many diaphyses? 1. Okay, so each long bone
Great drawing. Artist, man.
This is the epiphysis. Let me go on up there. The neck is your metaphysis, and then, well, that's terrible.
We appreciate your art and your skills.
There we go. This is your diaphysis. Okay.
So
That's what-
down there, the distal one would be your metaphysis again.
This would be your metaphysis, and this again would be your epiphysis. One of them is going to be distal, one's going to be proximal. This is going to be the proximal, this will be the distal. Okay, there's only one shaft. Okay, there's 2 heads. Okay. There's the distal and the proximal. The distal, the proximal on each long bone. The distal, the proximal, distal, proximal. Okay. So every bone, every long bone has a distal and a proximal side. Be able to label that picture on 391. Your epiphysis, metaphysis, diaphysis. Okay. We talked a little earlier that bone babies is made out of what? Actually, I shouldn't say bone. The skeleton of newborns is mainly made out of cartilage, mainly hyaline cartilage. How does it turn from cartilage to bone? Specifically, let's talk about long bones first.
Endochondral bone formation.
Endochondral bone formation.
Yeah.
Okay. What happens first there? How does it know what to do? What do you start out with? Cartilage model. Okay, made out of hyaline cartilage. Excuse me. Okay. Where's the first growth? Or where's the first part of the
Primary ossification.
primary ossification center is where it first starts turning from cartilage to bone. Okay. The primary ossification. Ossification means from turning into bone. Okay. So the primary ossification center happens in the diaphysis, exactly, the center of the long bone. And then you have what happen in the ends? A secondary ossificer. I'm not drunk, I swear. Ossification center. Okay. When those start to grow, what happens to the two first and secondary ossification centers? And the one starts in the middle and starts growing out. This one starts in the head and starts growing out. What's going to happen? They're going to meet. They're going to meet right here in the epiphyseal plate. Exactly.
There's not one at the distal.
Yes, on both ends. You'll have one at the proximal end and one at the distal end. Okay, the bone's going to grow in both directions. A lot of gymnasts, they say gymnastics or exercising a lot when you're young can stunt your growth. That's because if you damage these epiphyseal plates at all, the bone stops growing. It doesn't start growing over again, it doesn't heal, it just stops growing if you damage these plates. Okay? That's why a lot of people, if they're in gymnastics, they usually don't get over 5 feet, because all that pounding, landing, pounding, bouncing damages these plates, and then they stop growing.
So you cannot play sport?
No, you can. You just have to be careful, you know. Just don't be too rough when you're really young. When do these plates close?
18 to 25.
18 to 25. Okay, so your teenage years. The end of your teenage years, I should say. Okay? So you gotta just be careful if you're gonna be playing sports a lot when you're young or in gymnastics.
So even when you're playing a sport in high school, you still have the chance to.
You could. Yep.
Okay, it's good information to know for next time we get young.
Yeah, next time you're 18, or next time you're 12, no, not to play sports until you're 18. Okay, so you come back as a wood slug. Make sure you don't exercise until you're 18. Okay. That bottom where it shows the epiphyseal plate and it shows the different layers, you don't have to worry about knowing those different zones. It's interesting. I think if you want to learn about it, it's interesting, but there won't be any test question on it. Now, the picture next to that of the adult hand and the child hand, you could be able, or you could be asked to tell me, is this a child's hand or is this an adult hand? And how would you tell?
If the plates are close together, or the
Right.
bones are close together.
Like on the big X-ray where you can see it looks like the tips of the bone are floating, they're disconnected, that would be an open epiphyseal plate. Okay. If you can't see a line at all, or it's just straight bone from the top to the bottom, that means closed. Cartilage does not show up in X-rays. Okay. So where that cartilage is, it just looks hollow. Okay. So that's when you know that the epiphyseal plate is cartilage and not bone. Because once it closes, it calcifies, turns into bone, and there's no more growth. Okay. All right, that's for long bones. How do you get flat bone growth? intermembranous bone function. Very good. Well, how does that differ from endochondrial? You start out with a hyaline.
It has a whole bunch of ossification centers that just kind of merge.
Exactly. You start out with a hyaline model, just like in long bones. But how many people have kids here? You ever had the coloring books? The watercolor books would have the little dots inside the book or inside the picture. And each picture has its own color. Color